Dan?
Yes.
Should we start?
We're 2 minutes in.
Right. Birdie, hello, mate. Thanks.
We haven't started, have we?
No, I just did the. I just wanted to record that, the football chat.
That'll be.
I'll make a nice little trailer edit for TalkSport.
Yeah, TalkSport special. I'm ready to go.
Go for it.
Okay, Birdie, mate, thanks for coming back on to the podcast. This is Andy Bird Part 2. How have you been since we left you? Our roving report on America. Can you report anything, any developments since the attack on Capitol Hill?
Well, this really is part 2, because usually when you hear these things, I presume that you just carried on recording, but it is actually a week since.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an interesting week.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of shocking what's happened. And
do you think it's going to go off? On Wednesday, the inauguration. I mean, joking aside, because we're, obviously, I'm at the mercy. We're all at the mercy of the media, and you read it, and you go, "Oh, that's what's happening." But when you're in a country, is there a feeling? Say you chat to your friends in New York. Is there a feeling that something will happen on Wednesday, or will it be kind of just a bit of a damp squib? Or
well, I think Washington looks like. I don't think anything's going to happen in Washington, because it's complete lockdown, and this is like a military kind of stronghold there right now. I think it might happen in other places around the country. Probably not in places like New York, but some of the places it's really
and you mean in kind of the Trump stronghold?
Trump strongholds in places where where maybe they're contesting the results most, which is around there. But I think. It's kind of frightening, to be honest with you. The challenge.
I'll tell you one of the things I've loved about the coverage that we've seen here is the use of social media to out some of the people who were kind of ringleading the rioting.
Yeah.
I think that's been fantastic. That together people are identifying people and snitching on them to the authorities. It's been great to see that.
Yeah, what it did expose to actually last night was what went down a wormhole and ended up looking at, like, there was, like, I think it was a maybe Vice film about the people at the different groups who are at the protest, and it's absolutely petrifying that these people believe. And what happened in this country over the past, so I've been here for 6 years now, and at the start I kind of arrived just as Trump was announced his candidacy for the president, and it's brainwashed the whole nation. I mean, it's completely divided the nation, that's for sure. And people, I think a lot of these people who protested at the Capitol last week, probably 4 or 5 years ago, were just a little bit either lost people, basically, without anything to believe in. Trump gave them something to believe in, and now they're feeling cheated. In fact, they're kind of feeling cheated by him, because they're asking for pardons from him. Of course, he's not going to give that to them. So,
it's like a really bad episode of Black Mirror. Black Mirror. It's just like, because I just, like you, Dan. And you, Bandy. I just watch it, and your jaw's on the floor. But then you do think, in any country, in any big gathering, I'm looking at the Emirates. So I was thinking, right, the Emirates. So there's 60,000 people going to the footy. You're going to have 600 idiots trying to have a fight, right? So there's part of me to think. Well,
it's probably not a fair number when you're talking about the Emirates, is it? Because there's a higher proportion of idiots.
Yeah, well, librarians.
They'd leave the riot early, wouldn't they?
Oh God, it's a football special. But no, you're right. What I was trying to explain to my girls was, look, because they were getting a bit upset by it, and I said, look, these are not representative of the whole. But they're on the edges, but they've been allowed to go and do their thing. They've been empowered by him.
I think you're right. I think those fringe groups have just felt some sort of been given the nudge in the right direction that they feel, is that they go, well, okay, well, if he's telling us we can go and do this, let's do it. And they've gone from sleeper mode to activated in a matter of that's basically taken 4 years. That's what they've been building up to.
I did read one funny thing before we get into ads this morning. If somebody said to you that 6 years ago that Rudy Giuliani has been stood down from representing Donald Trump for his second impeachment due to his storming of the Capitol.
Yeah.
Nuts, you can't imagine that. 6 years ago, still a game show host, Giuliani, the ex-mayor of New York, and 2 impeachments, and the storming of the Capitol building would have.
Yeah, it's ruined. It's ruined the sort of stand-up routine stroke. Satirists, because you can't really. You can't make it up anymore, can you?
No. And what's that? What are the films that thing has the Fallen films? Washington's Fallen, London. They can't make them anymore because no. Anyway,
but as we try and shift it towards the arts, there was the last thing I'll say. I watched a really nicely put together film about trying to break down the design of some of the emblems that the rioters were wearing.
Yeah.
And if those fringe groups, I'll post a link to it in the description, but it's really quite interesting, some of those groups and how they've designed their emblems for their local posse.
Well, unfortunately, they all have very overtones of another movement, which
absolutely. They broke every single one of these things down and to point to them to say, look, where these have the undertones are right there.
Yeah.
The supremacist groups and all sorts of stuff. That you just go, wow, that is crazy.
Maybe that could be a new category at Cannes.
We'll be surprised.
Right. Well, thankfully, that's a nice little link to advertising, at least, back to our little world. Birdie, we wanted to pick up from Ogilvy. I think we finished on Ogilvy in part one. Yeah. So I've been sort of tentatively trading this as the Publicis years. But were you looking to leave when you went, or was it just too good an opportunity to resist? What was it about?
I think it was just I got a phone call and I think I went to meet Karen Buchanan, who was the CEO at the time, and I really liked her. She's great.
Yeah.
And Publicis was kind of not doing much in London at the time, and they would. I can't remember who was my predecessor. Actually, it's terrible. So I said yes, and it was properly like a start again for me, and take over something fresh.
Yeah. Was it nice being back in town? Obviously in Baker Street, Madame Tussauds and all that.
Yeah, it was lovely. I used to go to sightseeing at lunchtime. No, well, I actually live out east, so Canary Wharf was kind of really useful for me. But
really?
Yeah, yes. So, no, it was great to be back in to actually just to have a clean slate and start something fresh, and Publicis had some really good people working for it who maybe hadn't had the best luck or look and stuff. So it was a great opportunity, actually.
Did you before you got there, or when you got there? Because I've just been looking through the work, obviously the Billboard and out of home stuff, and we really want to talk about the DePaul Trust.
Yeah,
was that one that had already been doing good work, or you targeted, or what happened there? Then?
Good question. Well, there was a thing called iHobo. Do you remember that? It was
that was cool.
They'd done that like a couple of years before, but then they hadn't done anything for a while. And I remember they'd done one thing a year. I had their one campaign a year, and they haven't got any money. I think they literally had like 15 grand or something. And there's an account guy called Will Arnold Baker, who's great. He ran the account, and I think I'd just been there like a month or two. And he says, "Well, we've got to do our ad for DePaul." And so I briefed a couple of teams, had some thoughts, and then and then we had this ad that was made out of that was on cardboard.
Right.
And I remember Paul Belford had done something for the RSPCA.
I love that ad, but
yeah. Great. So I was like, I had it in my hands. I was like, well, we can't do that because it's been done. It's been done.
Yeah, fair enough.
Which is like, feeling, oh shit, so it looked really great. And I was sitting there with Will, and I said, and he went to me, how much do you reckon a cardboard box costs? And I was like, actually, we're going straight to the idea now. And I was like, well, I don't know. So we looked it up. It was like, I think like 50p to make a cardboard box.
Right.
So that's where that idea came from. It actually was, again, it's like that cliche idea come from anywhere.
For the listeners, Andy, and actually, I only discovered this myself a while back, but just because that's a lovely way you've just described how you come up with it. So was that it? There was a open brief, do us an ad, and then you've gone.
I think
but you created your own company, right? You created your own cardboard.
Yeah. They literally had. I think they booked space in the Sun. They had a quarter page. That was it, and it was asking for donations basically. And we kind of said, well, that's not going to do much. What else can we do? And so, we created we literally turned them from a charity to a producer of cardboard boxes.
Wow.
And sold them to businesses.
Sorry to be thick. So how do you do that then? What do you do? Do you go and register at a company's house?
Register a company, yeah. We changed the name to the DePaul Box Company. We obviously we did there was some great, it was Leo, there was a junior team called Leo Bellis-Jones and Josh Norbury. I think I heard Dave Monk mention Josh because he did the Ireland Doors campaign.
Oh yeah.
And they were like that. I think there was still placement then with us, and I gave them that brief, and we worked together on that. So basically it was all they did. They worked so hard at that and just found companies that made boxes. We kind of hired them. We got a bit more money out of DePaul, and we just started making boxes, and then we sold them, and it made.
How would I have bought what? Because I saw in the film that you teamed up with estate agents, which is a great idea, great partnership. But then, how could I have bought it? What, online or on eBay?
Yeah, I've still got about 500 in my my locker back in England. Grab some of them. That was it. It was online. Obviously, social media did a lot. It really took off. In fact, it was going for a couple of. I think even after I'd left, it was still going.
I was going to say. One of my questions was going to be why would you stop that? Because that's a sort of timeless idea. It doesn't.
Well, it got to the point, and again, I'm being really honest with you, I think it just became like too big. It was almost like you had to hire we had to hire somebody to run it properly. And it didn't see the course, and I think it just needed too much investment from there.
Did you have, it reminds you of one of those ideas where it's always apparent that you have someone on your team who's a fixer or a doer. Like you have a creative team, like you said, those lads who just went, right, fuck it, we're going to go for it. Or did you have a producer as well, or account manager just went, right, we're going to steamroll of this?
Well, again, I think I mentioned it in the last one about people behind the scenes who make agencies tick and they don't get the credit that they really should for, you see the creative director's names or the creative team's names or producer. But actually, there was Colin Hickson who I don't know if you know, I think he got mentioned by Dave, who is behind all the great film work in Publicis. But there was a time when I was there, there was I think there was a real sense of camaraderie in that agency. He mucked in with this and did a lot of work behind the scenes. There's Brad, who was the kind of traffic guy, who just, made things happen. There was the production department was really strong, and, just making something was really exciting.
Yeah, I remember Dave Monkey said, he always knew when he was onto a good idea, when he knew it was going to give his producer a headache, which is a really lovely expression.
Well, I sat next to Colin and opposite Brad at that pub. I made sure that I really believe that when we get to the American bit in a minute, when agencies get really much bigger here, it's hard to have that close contact with people close to you who make the work happen. Yeah. So we all sat on the same table, which again, it's just easy. It just makes things so easy to get done. And there was, on that DePaul work, there was that campaign. There was outdoor as well. Look at the case study. There was traditional media as well, which we managed to kind of beg off our media company. So, it was
Was it an open brief, Andy, for the department? Because obviously, when you work in agencies, everyone knows the sexy stuff to work on, and if you go, right, it's coming around once a year. I imagine during your tenure there, it probably got more and more popular because you did more and more. Yeah, I
think what it was, you're right. You've worked at places where what it did do for Publicis then was it kind of it raised the bar. It was a funny time because we moved out of Baker Street pretty much as soon as I arrived because they were doing the building up, and we moved into this, which we called it. Ask anyone who worked there then, it looked like a cab office on Oxford Street. Like an old, and it was no heating. It was concrete floors. It was never deck. It was just like a temporary thing for a year and a half. And in that year and a half, it was just a really tight team. All of us were we all just kind of mucked in, and the work just got much better. And there was lots of other things. And that's that purple patch for 2 years. And DePaul was one of those things that we had a couple of ideas on the wall that were just, oh, that's good. I'll hang on to that. And when it comes around, I think Spot for Sale might have been one of those. There was a few things that we just kept on. I kept in the, on the burner just for when the brief did come around. And the thing about DePaul, I said, clients get really kind of addicted to once success happens, they keep doing more of it. So it became one of those briefs that was,
I suppose what was really good. I mean, they're all. Dan's going to chat in a minute about Spot for Sale, but on the DePaul Box Company, I suppose what I like about that the most is you created it's a massive idea, but then inside that idea you've got literal physical boxes, but then you've got out of home posters which can advertise it. You could have press ads, radio, you could have all that. So then when you, and this isn't being cynical, but then when you go into the award shows or whatever, you've got loads of angles. It's not just posters, you know what I mean?
You actually got a white pencil for D&AD and it got a gold for effectiveness, which is great, right? At Cannes, which is, that's something that I really probably appreciate more than the other ones because it just proves it worked, right? And I didn't do that. I didn't do that case study. That was the effectiveness award. But yeah, it really did kind of work. And it was a full. It was everything. We actually made a film, God forbid, as well for it.
Andy, you mentioned the Spot for Sale campaign.
Yeah.
And did you say that it was up on the wall as one of those kind of?
I think
we'll come back to that at a later date when you were in the temporary office.
Yeah, I can't remember. But it was one of those. It was Adam Bellow and who else was on that? I think it was Jason Masali, who actually work in San Francisco now. I mean, they got jobs for the back of it. They had that idea, and it was just one of those things that was such a simple idea about hijacking the queue at the Apple Store for, I think it was the iPhone. God, I think maybe.
So yeah, they were launching the iPhone 6, I think.
That's right. That's how long it was.
From the stuff, that's a long while ago.
Yeah.
But tell us a bit about the idea there. What was it? What was the hijack all about?
Well, basically, we knew it was coming up that the sale. So Adam and Jason, and basically we took. Shamefully, I didn't do it. I shouldn't have.
Send the traffic man down.
We all took turns of going there. I was meant to go down, but I was just too big. We basically got to the front of the queue early, like basically I think 4 or 5 days before the launch. Secured the front of the queue, and the agency took turns in going down there in stages just to basically camp out. And the connection to homelessness, which is DePaul, obviously, was the charities for, was really strong. And we camped out, and at the end of I can't remember exactly the amount of time before the launch, they opened the doors. We sold the spot on eBay.
Wow.
Which, I mean, just one of those ideas.
It's such a clever idea. I'm looking at the photo now, Bertie. So yeah, you're right. There's no sort of Jim Carrey looking slightly moody Geordie guy there. I can see there's a guy with a sort of Peaky Blinders cap. There's a guy in a red.
That's Matt Gainsford's down there, who was a account guy. It was Adam and Jason. Pretty sure it might have been Ed Harris. I'm not looking at the picture that you're looking at. So.
No. I'll tell you what, it's quite interesting because there's in the hype beast world, these are the guys who collect like the rare trainers and sneakers. Sorry for your ears, Andy.
Soccer.
There's this thing called, I don't know if anyone's heard of it, called a proxy, where you send a proxy down to queue up for you because you are far too busy and important as ECD or a CCO to go and stand in queues for your trainers. You will send a proxy there, which is the equivalent of what we used to do, where we send a junior to go and pick us up a cup of coffee. And that proxy you'd pay them to be there for the number of hours that they would stand there for, and they would deliver your trainers to your house. So there's this whole second market of queuing called proxies, and I wonder if whether proxies came out before this or because of this.
It was around that time. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, we don't live far from the Supreme store here it always makes me laugh. It's always a queue. So what are they queuing for? Like, it's mad. It's a strange, but God, this is again taking a tangent. But I think when they buy these sneakers, they don't say, I said sneakers. I don't think they wear them. I think they sell them on. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's all being sold on. Yeah.
Always buy them in a UK size 9, is apparently what I've heard. That's what
I did not.
My girls are into Depop, Andy. They buy all their stuff on that, like vintage.
All right. Well,
it's a massive thing. Like that, you can get all the good stuff in it. I'm sure that's where a lot of stuff ends up because they never be able to afford it brand new.
No.
Once you've done this, obviously you've done. That's 2 absolute killer ideas. At this point, had you yourself, got with this client and got really friendly with them? They must have been so happy with your work. Yeah.
I mean, that's as you know, it's like getting just having trust, isn't it? That's the thing.
You can see.
I think we'll get to the diesel work later. It's down to having a client that is almost your partner and going with you, especially in ideas like that take planning, and it's not just the agency that's kind of
because
it's not just us. Oh, here's a script. We're going to go and film this for you now. We'll come back to you. It's a bigger thing.
Yeah, and also go on, sir.
I think also it's like the kind of outdoor that Spot for Sale was. It's interesting how you if you'd said again like 20 years ago what an outdoor idea would be, you probably wouldn't imagine that would that could happen, right? What Spot for Sale is, you do a poster, right? Activations are again, it's stretching the kind of medium a lot, isn't it?
Back in the day, if you look at just the Cannes Lion categories, it was basic. Outdoor was essentially billboards and posters.
Yeah.
And now with the kind of the growth of the ambient categories, where you can do things like branded giveaway items at experiential locations.
Exactly.
There are all sorts of different categories that would fall into what was traditionally called outdoor, and out of home is a much better umbrella term, because you can do stuff like Spot for Sale, and you can put the kind of these are branded activities that are happening in the out of home space. And I think as we look at the Corners campaign that comes up and Fuck the Poor. It's that kind of stuff that is really rich in the out of home space.
The trouble is we can't rebrand our podcast, behind the out of home. It just doesn't roll off the tongue, does it?
No.
behind ooh.
Joking aside, our idea for this was always to do billboards, posters, out of home. Anything in that space, anything that's not inside or in a magazine was fair game. So I think, sometimes Dan and I talk about beyond the billboard, where we go, that's another way of looking at it. But it certainly is. These 2 are brilliant examples. The Spot for Sale is probably one of the coolest, purest ideas out there, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things that you do at the time and you don't realise, this sometimes like such a simple idea. Oh yeah, let's just do that.
It seems to. It just seems so simple, doesn't it? And I remember I suppose that's all the great ideas, isn't it? You distill them down and you go, yeah, that's it. Just some lads there and they're sleeping rough. Just for the thing. It's like, would that be the same process on Corners, Andy? Was that a similarly simple?
Corners is the same thing. Brief came around again. We were making work every 6 months for them. Brief didn't really change. It was just an awareness campaign. And then that idea, that really took a lot of... I do love that one because the craft involved in that. I just know how hard that was to make that work. And because that was a copywriting kind of masterclass to get that copy for those.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You get that to get 2 sides, basically 2 sides of the, 2 sides, the other side of the coin is another story. So basically making a story read across.
Is that with, did you do that with Sue?
No, Sue, I think Sue, I just hired, sorry, that sounds out. I got Sue to come over from Augury. We hired Sue and she did a ton of great work for us at Publicis. But that was Dan Kennard and Ben Smith, I think now, are out at me, I think, over there now doing some great stuff.
Right.
But that was, it was one of those ideas that that we had, and it was like it wasn't written when I saw it. It was like, yeah, that's really cool, but how are we going to do it? So Dan and Ben spent, I mean, I think I remember endless, and I got really kind of OCD over like the work copy and everything.
Yeah.
It took us a long time to get that to work, and there's one of them that doesn't quite work, and that does work, but it's not as good as the other two. So it's just getting that kind of copy and then finding the media to find the corners to make sure we had the right outdoor.
Yeah, I was going to say where, because
and then the PR of it as well. That made, and I think by then, DePaul had people knew what it was, were ready for the next DePaul thing.
So did you? I mean, obviously, excuse me, as a client, it's a pretty exciting idea to buy, but then you know, it's that thing. We always talk about this on the show. Like, okay, it's one thing having the idea, second thing getting a client to buy it, and third thing going, how the fuck are we going to put this together? You know, some people talk about they go to see a client and they've got it all worked out, and others they haven't. I mean, what stage was this for you?
It was we just we wrote them, and again, you know, I apologize, my memory exactly how it went, but I think we wrote them and then went to the client, and then I think we went to the media company and just find us some places that had corners. Some of it was kind of wild posting. But it was
so that was kind of it went up kind of guerrilla style, right?
Not all of it did. I think some of it was paid for, but it was the PR that pushed that off, and again it was just a really, and again I hats off to Dan and Ben, because just that writing was just really hard for them to do.
I mean, it's that thing Dan and I talk about a lot here. Like sometimes it's just getting it up once. And I'm looking at the photo of it now, and that is the thing. It's awful thing to say.
There was more than one.
But if you just say if I'm on Instagram or I'm on Campaign or something, and I go, oh my God, that looks cool. I haven't seen it in the real world, but I've seen it, and I know it's real because you're talking about it, and there's that. You know, it's that Hegarty thing sometimes, and you just need to get it once, and people remember it because it's so good, rather than run the arse out of it.
Yeah, it's just one of those. It got loads of PR. I mean, a lot of the design. It got picked up by a lot of design publications as well because of just the craft involved in it. And it was. It's one of those. Yeah, it kind of took off. And
did it do well in the awards?
You know what? This is one of those funny things. I feel sorry because it got 14 shortlists in Cannes. Right, and it won like stuff in the UK. It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes I think it might have been too much of a Cannes outdoor. Sometimes some stuff like that doesn't do so well because it's a little bit too intricate, if you know what I mean, a bit complex. But it did well in the UK. But I feel sorry for the guys because they got 14 shortlists. And I remember when the shortlist came out, we were like, "Wow, it's going to coming up."
Lads.
And did it only go into the outdoor lines, or did it go into?
You know what? I don't even think you can do that anymore. It had like categories. I mean, that's the thing about, you know, outdoor nowadays, that it gets stretched so much. Sometimes it's like, it was in everything. It basically, you know, and it did well in everything, but didn't quite win gold.
Birdie, just one other thing, because I know we're going to move on before Dan. If you take over the New York bit, but before we go there, you've just sent stuff through these sort of murals. Were they from London time for DePaul?
Yeah, they were from London. That stuff that did do well actually. That was again. So there was like 4 things that DePaul did for DePaul, and that was basically telling the stories of homeless people in the areas where they were sleeping rough.
Is that what around London? Around cities, London.
London. I think it was Manchester as well.
And what they were, and did you? I've just looked and briefly on WhatsApp, but they were painted on old buildings or existing buildings.
It's existing buildings. They're the real quotes from the lives of these people who are sleeping rough and just to raise awareness. And again, it's just. I think just great, that stuff.
They're really, I love the way they look. I mean, I love, again, back to the outdoor thing. Yeah, murals. We did a thing on JR, we did a thing on the DKNY sign. It's still outdoor, it's still that space. Yeah. And I love the art direction and the craft of those. They're so cool.
Again, you can imagine that stressed that went to getting them done because I mean, we again because we were handing over the concepts to artists, right? And the client was like, you can't read once you've painted that on the wall, and there was no roughs, right? It was like, well, go and do something, I mean, the creative teams, Joe and Steve on that, and they it was kind of a stressful time, but it kind of worked out. That actually did better than Corners, to be honest with you.
Did it? I mean, there was I think that people
for some reason it didn't get as much press.
No. And no, it's funny, I hadn't seen it. I mean, there's things like Javianas, in America, those massive ones. And there's something about, in Britain, we don't do things as big. We are getting better, like some of the Oatly stuff in the East is mega. Yeah. They take over the whole of the building. There was something I saw, actually on the news the other day, the side of a building in Leeds had been taken over by, what's his name? Anthony Burrell. He'd done... Did you see that? It's me and you, her and me or something. It was really cool. But I think in Britain we have just like smaller spaces, don't we?
Well, here there's everywhere. So there's painted murals everywhere. In fact, one of the first outdoors I did here was they paint the ad on buildings, and Dan might know more about this, but there's like literally like 40 stories of one ad that we did for Cadillac, and it wasn't printed; it was painted.
There's the biggest firm there in the US. In fact, they're based not far from you, Andy. Are called Colossal Media. Who their job is the painted murals. So I know them quite well. They're a fantastic group of people and very, very creative. And they've even brought those things to life with kind of UV paint. And they did an amazing one that you could scan with your phone, and they used image recognition where you could get more of the story. They had all these vignette stories of local heroes and things. I mean, there's some really, really good stuff.
So saying that, I mean, we'll get to some of the work we did in the US, but there's one particular poster that I think I've sent you just now, but that ended up being, I don't know, like 40 stories high on Fifth Avenue. And when I first got here, and I literally walked down the road, I was like, oh God, look at that. Everything's bigger, but it was just, there must be. I wonder if there's just not enough like space in London to do that, Dan. I don't know if there's even.
I think it's there's the very different rules about outdoor, that's for sure, and I think that the ownership of those sides of the buildings is a different story in New York than it is in London.
Right.
But I think that one of the things that is different is the appetite for it, and I think that the explosion of street art and painted murals from Brooklyn made its way very quickly to Manhattan, and I think that what we're seeing now is a kind of the reaction in the UK to it looking so good in the US is that more murals are appearing here. So there's a really amazing group of street artists here that we've worked with before who are doing all sorts of amazing murals around the country in the UK. There was some amazing stuff for FIFA, like the launch of the new FIFA game last year. And Marcus Rashford, who's a
amazing
footballer. He's just been involved in one for Burberry that I've seen that looks incredible in Manchester. I think
a place on
the trend is coming.
There's somewhere in Shoreditch, is there just around where Mother are? There's a few places about it, isn't there?
Yeah, there are a few over there actually. And in fact, in East London, it again, it's to do with the ownership of those walls that there's a bit less. There's less restrictions on it. Some of them are public walls, and there are also the local government are kind of promoting that.
Just before we finish, so Dan's going to chat to you, start the New York thing, but I'm just going to finish here with another pretty controversial campaign, actually. For the Palladium Trust, the Fuck the Poor idea. So once again, you're refusing to put ads on proper billboards, but it's outdoors, out of home. There's part of me fearing for the life of this guy. I remember seeing it. I couldn't quite believe it. I'd seen quite a few things, but again, could you just, what is it? I'll just say what it is. It's a guy walking around the streets with a sandwich board that says "Fuck the Poor" on the front, and he's trying to convince people to sign up to a petition or something. Is that right?
Basically, what it's a really interesting kind of experiment. I think it actually came, if you remember, I think it might be Die Hard, where
Die Hard 4,
where
3,
one of them, Is it Die Hard where Bruce Willis wears a similar kind of A-ball that's offensive and walks down?
It goes into the Bronx. That's right.
The Bronx, yeah. So it's kind of come from that, but it was I'm mindful as well. We've only talked about charity work. But here's another one. It was just a really interesting experiment to make people realize how much they cared. We shot it twice. Joe and Steve did it, and it's their buddy as the actor.
Really?
And the first time, he did get in. I mean, I think somebody threatened to stab him.
Seriously?
Yeah, and the police shut him down. But it was a brilliant experiment, because when he walked out the next day with Help the Poor and he was asking for money, nobody literally got like £3. So people found it offensive, but then it's just basically, highlighting how people say they care, but maybe they don't care as much about the homeless. But it was simply one of those ideas with not a lot of money behind it that Colin and the team just, made happen. And it got it just took off. It got millions and millions of kind of hits, and there was even spawned like imitation versions all around the world. People were doing their own version of it.
Could you recall what the I love going into these meetings thinking, well, this will be all right, won't it? Just going to tell the client the idea, and it's just a bit of fun, really. How did that sell go? They loved it. Absolutely loved it. They loved it. I mean, it again, you have to hold hands a little bit and go, this might get... Nobody actually went against. It was kind of one of those things that went well, because it basically just took off, and it paid for they've got a shelter in Islington, the Pillion Trust, and I suppose the thing is, what I like about it, like any good controversial idea, it is hardwired back to an idea which is hardwired to the brand, so it is relevant. It's not just it's not gratuitous. It's absolutely so. I think in that respect, what you've just said, he went there next day, and no one gave him a thing. It's like it just got. I mean, again, I can't remember the actual hits, but it was. I think it's the most viewed thing of the year or something. It was just huge. It was because it kind of went outside the UK. I know you made a joke about the charity thing, but I remember Graham Wood.
I think you work in London. That wasn't just charity.
We know that. But I think I remember that JWT and Graham Wood used to talk about you can only do work that you feel like you're confident of doing, and once you've done something like this, then you can go to more of a fee-based client going, look, we do this, we do that. I think in the way if you can't do it on the main clients, well, that's it. You've tried, and I think we're going to come to...
Well, we were doing great work actually, but it wasn't outdoor, it was mostly TV. So
that's a good point, Andy.
But it just so happens that the outdoor-ish work was mostly charity work at Publicis.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
I'm a big fan of any of those kind of where you've got an out-of-home experience and there's hidden camera to retell that story. The reason that this outdoor idea works is because it's been captured and that story's been told, and it's designed for another medium, in this case social video. And those, I think around that time it was a pretty groundbreaking thing to do, because that was the start of there was a bit of an outdoor turning point there at Cannes as well. This is where we started to see some of these case studies really take it up a step.
You're right, Dan. That's exactly right. Is when it all the kind of what outdoor actually was kind of started to change a little bit in award shows, and I think that influenced a lot of work. Like we'll get to the diesel thing maybe later on.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with it as well. I think that I was asked to join the Cannes team when they were redoing the kind of the categories for outdoor, because they could see that there were more and more digital things happening and more experiences being entered, and then them not having a home inside outdoor. So what was happening is people were putting them into film category or putting them into design category and putting them into media. But they wanted them to have a home in outdoor. And I think one of the things that this work in particular and the diesel work that we're going to talk about in a minute do is that they work in isolation in the outdoor space. However, to retell that story to a wider audience not only amplifies the outdoor medium, but the idea itself. So you've got something that can really work omni-channel. So it's working on multiple devices in multiple ways for multiple audiences. So yeah, I love this thing, and I think that the diesel thing that we're gonna take a trip to New York now, and your move to New York, is obviously was a big move for you, but it's nice to see some of the charity work that you have done in London make its way into the commercial work for New York.
Yeah.
So was it a big decision to up sticks and head to the Big Apple?
Yeah, huge. Like, beyond probably the biggest decision I've probably ever made, because the kids were like, I think my eldest was, God, how long? Would have been 10, and my youngest was 7 or 8. So it was taking them out of school and moving, but there was a period when New York didn't have a CCO in between, so they used to borrow me for pitches, and there was I used to fly over. We did 3 pitches in a year, and one was for Cadillac, and we won it. And then there was Sears and Kmart, and I was working with Dylan Williams at the time, who was the strategy director in London, who's now at Droga 5, and we had a really strong long purple patch of just winning pitches for London and then we won all these pitches in the US. And the Cadillac one was the one where it was like they said to me, well, you're going to have to kind of see this through, because the client now thinks you're it. So I was like, well, I'm quite happy where I am in London. I don't really. It was because we get to I think I was 4:39, something like that. I was like, do I really want to up sticks and go somewhere else? And I was older than that.
And in the US, I think in agency land, it's always been seen as a massive, massive feather in the cap to win an automotive client that size. Was that that was a big decision that you go for it and you get it. And did you know that it was going to be the catalyst for getting?
No idea. I remember flying over that and interestingly, the pitch we did for that. The US pitched for it as well, so the US agency did it as well, and then they asked me to do it from London. So we decided not to make any rip films. Oh, actually, we did make one, sorry, but we made a book of just if Cadillac wants to be a luxury brand and reinvigorate the brand, to just treat it like a luxury piece of luxury, like a diamond. So we made this like incredible kind of crafted book, took it over, showed it to them, they loved it, and then the campaign came out of that. I got a mate who lived in New York, Anthony, and we made this. So it's not outdoor, but it's a film that launched the spot and launched the rebrand in the Oscars. And I got him to shoot this film in the back of a rickshaw in New York and then we remade the film for like a lot more money for the Oscars. Anyway, they kind of loved the platform, and then we came over and spent. Well, we've still got the brand. It's now Leo Burnett's in Chicago, but we still work on Cadillac now. 5-6 years later.
So you sort of did have an inkling that they wanted you over there. It wasn't an overnight thing, but did it start to sort of just gnaw away at you and think, God, this is...
It kind of gnawed away, yes. I mean, it was like, it got really awkward because I was spending so much time in the US and in the London office as well. It was like hot, and I was away from the family a lot. That would just made more sense either not to do America at all, which I couldn't really because there's clients there, and then so Karen in London was like kind of said, okay, we're gonna have to we'll let you go. So I spent a year on my own. I spent pretty much a year on my own in the US, in New York, just living in a kind of a one room
doing the football
while you were sorting the family move out.
Yeah,
doing the football manager.
Yeah, like a football manager. Yeah, I did, and then the family followed the kids and Stacey.
I suppose those late night phone calls from me kept you company, though, right?
Well, that was one of the reasons that that's just what I wanted.
Has anyone else noticed how anyone who spends any time with you ends up emigrating to the US to try and get away from it?
Well, Australia as well. I've got Derek in Brazil.
Australia might work because the time might be early morning ones, won't they?
No, Birdie, to be fair, Ben Kay. I made Derek in Brazil. Lee in Australia stopped picking the phone up. Actually, he's blocked me now. But you're all very good. I'm very, very appreciative.
I'm trying to decide where I'm going to go to get away from you here.
One thing it's interesting though, because like a lot of creative, I mean, it's hard. It's a much different environment here than it is in London, and I kind of knew it because I'd been spending so much time over it. When I was at Ogilvy, I spent a lot of time on Dove in New York, so I kind of knew the deal.
Yeah,
but it's like agencies here that BBH, for instance, when they launched here, it didn't. I mean, they're not so impressed by what you've done in the US. It's like whatever. So don't give it the big, and don't think advertising in London is better than anybody else in the world, because I don't want to hear that. And I got some advice from somebody when I first turned up. He says, don't go on about what you've done in London as a creative, right? Don't mention it. Don't go on about football, as in soccer. Pick an American sport, stick with it. Right?
Oh my God.
Just get on with it, right? Because nobody's
cracking.
Yeah, and I took that advice.
What is your American sport?
Well, you know what? It's wavered a little bit. I started with football, NFL, when I first got here, and I kind of got my eldest Evans loves basketball. He plays, and so he's a big fan of the Nets. So both of those things. I mean, who knew? I've got into NFL. I was watching it last night, and kind of.
Is it a bit of a cliche, Andy? Because I know, obviously, in England, it's a cliche, but it's the truth that football is a big. We all love football and we chat about it. Because there's three main sports in the States, isn't there? There's NFL, there's basketball, and there's the baseball. Is there one which people in agencies tend to follow more? Or
I think basketball is cooler than anything else. But NFL, I went and watched the quarterfinals on Saturday outside a bar in Brooklyn. There was it was about -10 though. I was sitting outside, the screens on, because you can still drink in the street here.
Okay. Lucky thing. That sounds like luxury.
It's. I think it's probably basketball, to be honest.
We better we get back on track.
They get on track. You might have to cut that bit out.
So let's talk about the diesel campaign. Was that one of the first things you did when you were?
No, it's a couple of years in. I mean, Cadillac. We did a lot of work for Heineken, actually, which again is film. So the first kind of outdoorish stuff that I really got involved with was diesel or diesel. So diesel was a client we have in Milan in the office, in Bruno Batelli, who's the CCO there. They wanted to do a thing for the New York fashion that year. It was 2018, I think. They wanted for the shows. So they came to us and said, "Look, is there anything you can?" Having some ideas, and there's an Italian team that worked at our place called Luca and Luca, who I got on that to work with Bruno, and there's a creative team, Kristen, she's brilliant. She still works for us. They had this idea about basically changing the brand, because there was a bit of data actually which kicked that idea off, which was that diesel is the most counterfeited fashion brand in the world, which I didn't know.
Wow.
You buy more fakes than any other, which I think is in the Far East. I think it's just a huge industry. So we took that piece of info and kind of turned it on its head, and made an idea of it, which is basically sell fake diesel in a fake store in New York, and just see what happens. And it just did really well. I mean, it took off.
That's it. That again for me is another you say it there. It's such a great idea. It's so simple. It's a one-liner, but to convince a client to change the spelling of their product and then create a fake shop. I mean, that must have been quite a sell, right?
Yeah. Again, it's like I think I mentioned earlier on. It's down to clients being absolutely lockstep with the agency. I mean, they remade the clothes, they rebranded. It cost a lot. They invested in that hugely, because they knew that it was one of those ideas, a bit like that you just go, that's clever, and they kind of went for it.
I suppose because, sorry to interject, but if it was for to flag up fashion week, fashion brand? Well, sorry, I didn't quite catch that. But in a way, there may have been less risk involved because if it was a bit like a one-off thing. Is that fair or not?
Well, it was just it was a one-off. It was a one-off thing because it was the New York Fashion Week. It was obviously just it was more than just there was a long tail for that idea as well, which was the kind of market, the sales of the clothes. I mean, the crazy thing was there were fakes, and then people made fakes of the fakes, and then so on. And then there was just again, the film we made for it was
I've watched that film. It's not often you don't sort of go, oh, I must watch that case study film again, but it's like it's really funny. Did you? Yeah. Who cast those guys? They're absolutely brilliant.
There were a couple of comedians on the New York comedy circuit that we managed to find that just played that part absolutely hilariously.
Did you feed them a script or lines, or how did you actually pull it off?
Well, they're stand-up guys, so they just basically riffed
improv,
it. Improv. They just riffed it, and he's hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
Can you remember? Sorry, just to roll it back. How you set it up? Did you have to buy a stall, or did you get a license? How does that all happen?
Anybody who knows that area of New York, there's a little row on Canal Street of kind of. They sell handbags and fake stuff on the street. It's there. So that's literally from where I live now. It's about 4 blocks up.
As in, people are used to going there to pick up a fake handbag, right?
A lot of tourists go down there.
Yeah,
which always baffles me because they just go.
It's just down by Chinatown, right?
That's exactly right. Yes, on Canal Street.
Yeah.
And that store was empty. We actually got the store next door and set up we had the secret cameras are in there, and we put the whole production was in the store next door, and then and went from there. And then the queues went around the block literally on the day of the launch, because we teased it first, and then we launched the product, and then people were buying them. A bit like the Supreme thing we were talking about earlier. It just kind of it went gangbusters.
How long was it open for?
I think it was 2 or 3 days, and we came back and sold the rest. I mean, it sold out in immediately. Like all of it went. And then it went.
And was it publicised on the kind of?
Oh my God! I mean,
social channels.
Vogue. It was everywhere. It just put Dealey back on the map, because they're probably not as front of mind as because denim. I mean, denim now is like there's so many.
Yeah.
Brands. Back in the day, it was Diesel, Levi's, and a couple of others. Now there's like so many other. They just needed to get them.
I love the audacity of misspelling the actual name. The Snickers stuff, I think, this comes close. When they spelt Snickers wrong on the packet.
Yeah.
Yourself. It's that. I mean, I don't know if it gets any better than that. To actually mess with the low. It's so good, mate. Just
as a brand, I love how the lack of seriousness they take, but in a serious way. I think.
Yes, exactly. It's in the DNA of that brand, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the playfulness is there, and it comes through in these kind of ideas.
Yeah, they've consistently done that for forever, and they're still doing it.
How far into your tenure, Andy, was it? When you got to Publicis New York, was this quite? As soon as you got there, you did this, or was it a bit of a way?
A couple of years, but we'd already done lots of stuff that obviously wasn't Billboard. So, but that's out of home. No, it was a couple of years, and they put in it. Again, it strangely, it just feels like a let's say a New Yorkie idea. Funnily enough,
yeah,
I don't know why.
Yeah. I know it's
but yeah, it no, it was a couple of years in, and
going back to that, the playfulness. It reminds me of, I mentioned it at the end of the last one. My friend Davide works for Publicis in Europe, and they did a collab with a well-known kebab van in Germany.
Yeah,
and they shot a hidden camera type video for it. It was really funny.
Yeah, is that Davide Boscani? I know.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah,
that kind of that playfulness that they have with their brand, allowing a creative team to get behind, that pitch something in that is. The audacity of it is like, right, let's misspell the logo, or in the kebab shop we're going to do it. Everyone else does. Supreme does a collab with someone incredible, and Diesel was going to do something with the kebab shop owner.
Yeah,
that is just genius stuff. That goes gangbusters.
Do you think, Birdie? Because we talked about this a bit during the chat. Do clients tend to lean more towards certain media in the States? Do you think billboards and out of home is less on the agenda now, or?
I think I mentioned in the previous one, billboards are I think in the US, out of home and highway billboards are ingrained in this country, right? It's like it's something that's always been there.
Yeah.
Have they been used as creatively as they were maybe in the UK? I don't know. But like I said, I judged the awards a couple of years ago, and there was some really good stuff in there. There was the McDonald's signpost work was really good.
Yeah.
I think it's coming back. I think, but film is like, I mean, the reach for TV is still so huge in the US that it's still a major part of people's buy. Which, one of our clients, Smuckers, we're kind of making 60-second TV spots for them.
Wow.
Like almost like BBH type work where the ideas at the end, like big production. So we're still doing all that stuff. But innovation, I think, is I think a lot of clients, big clients, are looking to somehow innovate on their media, spend a little bit more. I think it's too young.
It's such a different market, the out-of-home market in the USA. I think it's 10 times the size of the UK market in terms of value.
Yeah.
It's a $10 to $12 billion industry, and over in the UK we're almost about 50% digital now. That's it's an incredible amount of digital versus traditional. Yeah. In the US, it's about 10%, I believe. 10 to 15% max.
If you go down the subway here, there's just not the same. I mean,
there is just a lot of printed material, and obviously, just in terms of audience, that the US obviously huge, and most of the audience outside of the main metropolitan areas is driving traffic. So, for the main part, you have a lot of roadside billboards still that are drive-by billboards. So you still have that huge traditional out-of-home audience who are picking up their out-of-home daily media by twice a day, driving to work and back from work, or to the school drop-off and back from the school pickup. So it's just balancing those two markets. It's a very, very different out-of-home market in the UK than it is in the US.
I'm interested to know, Birdie, do creative teams and creatives, do they revere out-of-home as much as... Because in England, in the UK, I think after a big TV brief, or maybe at the same, it's posters and film still that I think teams get excited about. In America, is it... TV more outlet?
A TV, actually, we're getting more and more briefs now that say no film. Try and tell an idea with a and that, I'm sure that's everywhere though. But but then they always end up doing TV.
Okay, just TV.
I think but it makes it harder for creators. It does. I think it was so much easier for us. I think back in the day. I sound really old, but there was like less mediums. Yeah. I think it trained you to be a tighter with ideas, a little bit more tight, and because you can sometimes sift through social and digital ideas which don't feel like you're just trying to find the idea in there, because the idea sometimes is the medium, can be the medium, right? And that I'm still a stickler for like what's going to have.
Listen, just before we go on that, the last thing, the idea is the medium, or the medium is the idea. Could you? Because I'm just looking at the back of this billboard idea you sent us.
Oh yeah,
which is amazing, and actually it literally is behind a billboard. I'd love you just to talk us through that before we check out. What is that for? So
that's for Doctors of the World, which I think we've done a lot of work for. Well, I know we do a lot of work for in the US. It's a pro bono account. It's the one big pro bono account Publicis New York has, and we did a campaign when Trump won the election about how to go to emigrate to Canada, which did really well. Right. And then that was, and then obviously the Build a Wall, Trump's, the complete mess and awful kind of political environment. At that time, they asked us to do an awareness campaign, and we came up with this idea about literally, because the refugee crisis on the border was kind of being part. People were weren't telling the full story of the plight of these people. So it was almost out. The line was out of sight, out of mind. So I knew somebody from another one of our clients, the media buyer. I said, "Look, can you get us some billboards?" We had this idea about basically turning a post around and pasting it inside on the back of a billboard, not the front.
Bloody
and he found these spaces down. They're in Texas, actually, near the border.
Right.
And we made this campaign. Basically, you can still see the message, but it was hidden in the back of the post.
It's really
were there other ads? Were there ads on the other side, Andy? Were there regular ads on the other side? Were you just taking the back side of the billboard?
Yeah, we just found the back. Yeah, we made sure we took a bit of research to just work out where we could do it and if it could be read.
It's absolutely. I mean, that is honest to God, mate. It's brilliant. I love. It's so well art directed as well. I mean, I know the big idea is to take the back of the other billboard, out of sight, out of mind. But it just looks. I mean, again, it's that thing we said. You just do it once, and then I look at it now, and I'm already thinking about it. I know the client. I'm interested already. That's going to get so much more reach than a conventional billboard with a more conventional message.
But it is quite interesting that we've talked about this a few times, and I think the reach for this idea comes as a result of its execution, not because of the execution. The audience who go past this or who have seen it on the highway, there may be, in the few weeks that it was up, maybe 10,000. The fact that this image will be shared and shared and shared and shared and shared, it's a result of the fact that it was on a billboard. It's a result that it's a great idea and art direction, and the fact that it's got an amazing message behind it. So outdoors doing a job as amplifier here, or the kind of the start of the amplification, allowing the audience to share it afterwards. And I think that's the smart thing on some of the newfangled out of home campaigns that could. I mean, beyond the medium.
The creative on there is a guy called Josh Horn, and he worked with me. He is actually a real craftsman, and he's like, it does need people with a little bit of a kind of leaning towards outdoor and to craft and to design to get that kind of work to kind of happen.
I tell you why it sort of struck a chord with me and Dan, because at the beginning when we were trying to advertise our series, we got a very good designer, Jordan Blood at VCP, to do our actual logo.
That's nice.
Hegarty actually wrote to us and said he really likes us, which is a real a few moment as he's coming
on. No, he didn't. He said he really likes the logo. He didn't say he really likes us.
No, absolutely. We're going to wait for that moment. We're going to keep everything crossed. He likes our logo.
That's a start.
But we're doing our sort of trying to publicise our launch. We found that ad that I think Ben and Emma did. I think they were when they're MCBD Birdie, and it was like, watch the other side. You should watch it. It's for Radio Times, and it was a brilliantly art directed thing where you could see, just in one of the little squares of the billboard. And Dan and I nicked that unashamedly. Sorry, Ben and Emma, full credit. But it worked really well for to tell our story, behind the billboard.
You can steal it. It was an homage, I'm sure. To it.
An inspiration, Andy. But again, but it still looked fucking good, and this is what I mean about this. It's still, there's always one thing to go. Okay, we're going to use the arse end of billboards. Okay, it's still got to look good.
Yeah. And then you got to make a case. Then you got to make a case study about the poster, which is again.
The poster.
This is the world we're in nowadays. Case studies. When you start making case studies for print ads, I've seen those as well.
That's end up staying weeks in can.
I know.
If ever, Birdie, we're gonna have to finish, mate. We've managed to do another very good session. Thank you.
What's part 3 going to be?
Before we let you go, then we've got 2 more things to ask you. The billboards that didn't happen is the first one.
All right, God.
Any in the bottom drawer?
Oh God, that's a really, really good question. Well, I think I mentioned it last week, and it is this UBS campaign. I ended up working on UBS anyway at Publicis, and we did a really nice campaign for them, which is film. But outdoor at BBH, we created this whole alphabet and design system for UBS, which was the line was making sense of numbers.
Right.
It was headlines made out of numbers, but it was. I mean, I've seen that done before, but it was after since then. But this was like we got wood. We set this wood text. It was just beautifully done. Tony and Kim. that was the thing. I've still got it, and I still look at it now and again.
Yeah, I remember that. And do you have a favourite, Andy, at all? Favourite Billboard of all time?
Of all time, yeah. This is
well, I just think the Nike work was. Yeah. I remember when Wyden New York were doing that. They basically ripped. They were the first people to, I think, make not. I mean, the Thomas Palmer work was amazing. Actually, Isaac Newton won that. So Neil, that one. That's one of the greatest posts of all time. But actually, just bring in like when design kind of turned upside down in the early 90s, and Wyden brought that work into outdoor for Nike. I think that was just a stunning special time. And then there's just so many. How do you even? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think this is going to be one of the first podcasts we've done, and we haven't said the word "The Economist."
Oh, you just ruined.
Oh, Christ! Christ! Yes, sorry. I can't say Christ anymore. Yeah, I should have. Yes, The Economist.
No, you don't. No, it's been really refreshing not talking about it. But so many people talk about it, and we try and not go on about it too much.
We got so close. We were just over 2 hours into this double-parter, and no one had said Economist, and then Hugh.
Well, maybe that'll be part 3, Andy. Yeah, that will be. We'll do a football and Economist.
We'll do Andy on The Economist.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, Andy. Is it true you needed an interpreter when you first arrived in New York?
Yes.
No, you did say in Cannes one time they can't fucking understand me.
No, so there was a pitch for Sheraton Hotels I was doing in Washington DC, and I was down there with our team, and this the head of new business, Jamie Rose, and I finished my presentation, and then she turned around to them and said, "Can any of you? Do you want me to say that in English?"
That's so rude.
And I was like, "Sorry." She goes, "Well, I don't think. Did any of you understand that?" She said it in front of me to the client.
God,
I love it. And I said, "That was English."
Oh,
so I learned. I just have to scroll down. Yes, I've had I've had Norwegian, and I've had all sorts of they don't
Norwegian. Oh, brilliant! Yeah. Oh, anybody? No, actually, let's leave that. We're going to go into dangerous territory. Thank you again. I'll just say we'll leave the Sheffield United result as well for another time. And
we've got Arsenal today, so we'll see how that goes.
Goodness tonight. Hope you smash them.
Yeah.
Mate, stay in touch, and please send over the stuff that we've forgotten. I've just found the mural stuff. Looks amazing.
All right, great.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers, Dan. Thanks, Hugh.
Yeah, I couldn't resist that interpreter thing all along. I kept thinking of because the chat was quite good. It's quite serious. We're getting into all the sort of detail of the work, and I kept thinking that might be really rude.
Do you know what the easiest word to say in Geordie is?
Oh God, it's going to be a swear word.
No, conjunctivitis. Try it.
Conjunctivitis.
See, told you.
Not bad.
Even you can do a Geordie accent.
So why have you brought that?
It's a damn sight better than your Norwegian accent that you tried a minute ago.
Mate, I'm so good on accents. They all end up in a Welsh valley, I think.
I mean, I really hope our Norwegian listening brigade jump on the comments on our social feed.
Yeah, we're pretty big out there, aren't we?
We're big in Norway.
Yeah, mate. Well, you're big in Japan as well. Yeah, that was good. Wow. I mean, the interpreter thing, I do actually remember seeing Birdie down in Cannes one year, and I think he'd just started. He'd been there a year or two in New York, and he was like going, "Fucking hell, man, I don't think you understand me, what I'm seeing." Like, I was like, that's not going to go well. But clearly, he's definitely doing something right. He's been there 5 years and he's smashing it. So,
wow, I see some of the work coming out of there. It's just, he went there, what did he say, 5 or 6 years ago, and he's just taking it to another level now. So
yeah,
it's
great. He's such a gentle, kind soul underneath all the hard Geordie exterior. I think, it's been a real pleasure to get him on.
Yeah, it's been great. think it's it's a real. I love his story, his where how he started in the industry. It's not it's not the usual straight out of university and placements. It was it was a real climb up the ladder for him. From
it's great.
YTS scheme all the way up to CCO. That's inspirational for anyone.
I think everyone needs to hold on to that, because that's, for me, that's still relevant. I mean, I did a degree in construction management. I hated it. I was on the dole for 2 years. I was over the shop before I finally found my feet in advertising. So I don't think there's any conventional way in.
Do you still rely on some of your lessons from your construction management?
Yeah,
as part
if you ever want to convert a flat roof to a pitched, that was my final year 10,000 word project, and I can help you with that if you want.
You wrote 10,000 words about how to do it?
Yeah, I did. I cannot believe I did that.
How can you string out that project into 10,000 words? Oh, I guess you're a writer. You went off on a tangent.
Yeah, you know me. I can talk shit for England.
Was there a couple of flashback scenes? And
yeah. Actually, do you know what? I hated every minute of it. I mean, God, even writing long copy for a pension brochure was better than doing that. So I think I found my home in advertising. I'm very happy here. Right, love. I'm gonna have to run.
I mean, what the construction industry lost is the advertising industry's gain, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I could go back. I could sort of design some sort of like road junction if people are up for it.
Exactly. It's never too late. You're only 64.
Going to get my vaccine next week, mate.
Yeah, you'll be 3 months ahead of me on that vaccine.
Shut up. Right, let's leave it there, darling.
See you later.
Lots of love. Bye.